Okay, so the location that we proposed is what you see up here on the screen, marked as proposed location.
The street at the top is Center, I'm assuming?
The street at the top is 100 North. The street on the bottom is Center Street.
Okay, okay. It's not north-south.
So yeah, so you can see kind of there's a big parking lot right there, and you can't really see it very well in there, but there's a dumpster out there kind of adjacent to the parking lot there. That's the picture. So what they're basically proposing to do, there are a number of light poles there for the ball fields, and they're proposing to essentially take out one of those existing light poles, replace it with a new monopole. They would put their wireless antenna on there, and then they would also mount new lights for the ball field there. So the net effect is you kind of don't have any new poles, they're just replacing an existing pole. It would be a thicker type of a monopole, so you would notice a difference. It would essentially be about the same height as the existing light poles that are out there right now. They're proposing 75 feet, essentially the same height. If you've seen the existing monopole that's out there at the bottom where that red arrow is, Jason, you can just kind of.
We can see the red arrow.
Okay, you're probably familiar with it, but that's a tower that's owned by Verizon right now. I think there's 2 or 3 providers on there. We've kind of marked the distances from the 2 locations from each other, as well as the distances to the sidewalk across the street, just as point of reference. So there's the existing. Okay, yeah, so there you can get a view of that existing pole. Kind of what that looks like.
The actual lights.
Is it inside the field?
No,
Because
no.
so it's not likely a player's gonna run in.
No, it's outside the field.
Unless you go for 5 ball game.
See the lights are on that pole.
Jason, do we have, I think we have a shot of the location. Let's go to that if we will, the proposed location. So there you can kind of see the pole that's being proposed to replace. Jason, do we have let's go to the next one. Do we have a better one? No, that's that closer up one. Okay, that's the one I was looking at. So there you can kind of see the parking lot and the dumpster, the existing light poles right there, and they're proposing to relocate that just a little bit to the west. One of the reasons why this is a good location for them is because you've got this parking lot, it's really easy for them to access it. And so they need to access their equipment, they need to do maintenance, and also actually for the installation, the pole itself, it works really well. So that, we looked at some other locations that were interior to the park. But again, the access is not as great for those because then they have to bring in a truck, either on the sidewalk or across the grass or that kind of thing. And that's maybe a little bit more disruptive. So we actually thought this was good for us and good for them as well.
Do we get paid more on this location than the other?
No, it would be the same. We basically charge the same rate for all of our monopoles in the city, our settlement towers. That's running right now about $30,000 a year. If there's one provider, if there's more than one provider, it goes up to about $45,000.
Steve, maybe you can, I was just briefly explaining to the mayor, we actually looked at co-location, but yeah, this just doesn't fit on the existing pole.
Yeah, you can see the existing pole has got a couple of antenna array, there's just not room. If they needed a certain height, they would be too low if they were to go on that pole, so it just doesn't work.
So this is not, is this to do with upgrading to 5G or is this to do with additional?
I think it's just mainly doing coverage. It's not, I don't think it's 5G related. I think it's just to get better coverage.
Yeah, 5G is actually now on the pole across the street in front of McDonald's. If you see that, the light pole is changed out, that's actually the 5G pole.
Okay.
Yeah, the 5G system is more what we call small cells. And that's where they put, basically on city street lights or, other little poles that they might install along the street. They have a little smaller antenna array they use for that. But the monopole, the cell towers are actually tied into that whole system, but they're not, I don't know, they're not the core necessarily.
So I guess my question is, so is this to provide a spot for another provider?
Yes, T-Mobile.
So this is for T-Mobile?
Yes.
And this other one we already got for Verizon?
Yeah, you got Verizon on there and there's somebody else, I can't remember who it is, but yeah, there's somebody else on there as well.
Steve, sometimes they try to make them look like a tree or something.
Yeah,
Are they gonna do anything to make it look blend better or no?
we haven't asked them to do that. We could if you wanted to. Sometimes they stick out more if you try and make them look like a line
Yeah,
tree, so they make it
that's
look
true.
like
We just thought though that if they could be mounted, and the lights could be mounted,
Yeah.
then it would, to some degree, look like it fits.
Like a light
Yeah,
bulb.
it is like a light pole essentially.
They look more like light bulbs than they do trees.
Yes.
They ought to own that.
Yeah.
I don't know, palm tree might be nice.
Yeah, there are a lot of those growing. in
Like the one in Provo on University
Yeah.
Avenue. God, it looks ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, can they paint it green or something? I don't know. Just paint it so-
I mean, yeah, I mean, if you wanted them to paint it a different color, but again, you have a bunch of light poles out there, they're all silver.
What are they? Oh, they're silver?
Yeah, so if you change the color, it might
Yeah.
look like it'll stand out more.
Okay, no, they don't wanna do that.
Right now. So anyway, we just, before we go forward to execute a lease agreement with T-Mobile, we wanted to make sure you were comfortable with this proposed location. See if you had any thoughts or questions about this. If you are okay with it, then we'll move forward. Basically, we do a lease agreement for an equipment building, which would be next to the dumpster there, and as well as, the site of the long pole itself.
And the lease agreements, Steve, are they 20
They're
years?
typically 30 years. 25 years.
And that lease includes the
Do they
building.
have escalators in?
They do.
It includes the building, yes.
And the escalation clause,
It's,
10%?
we typically done 4% a year. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. They kind of screen.
How big is that building? It's not gonna encroach into that either.
No. No, Jason, do we have an
Right there
area?
by the dumpster.
That's kind of the area that it'll be behind the batting cage.
So, Mayor and Council, just so that you're aware, we do have a number of these poles sited in our parks. And what we have historically done is we have taken the revenue that's generated from these poles in parks and rolled that revenue back into parks. So it hasn't really been money thrown into the general fund, but we've reinvested into our parks.
So will that extend past the dumpster wall? How was the 22, how long deep is the dumpster?
How big is the dumpster?
Yeah, will the footprint be similar to the dumpster?
No, it looks like it overlaps.
Looks like a
How far
little
does
bit
it
of
extend?
overlap.
How far?
A little bit of overlap.
I mean, this is just a rough, we'll work that out with them so that there's no overlap or,
I mean, because how
I
close
just,
is it
I don't know
gonna
how
be?
far the batting cage, yeah, how close is.
Because kids warm up there too.
They proposed not to have a structure, just outdoor equipment.
what's that?
There was no structure, it was just a pad with stuff inside of the compound. So there's no building or anything like
Oh,
that.
that's not-
That's right.
Okay.
And actually, this site, we looked at a lot of different locations, like I said, and some of those would have interfered with baseball players warming up and things like that. So we tried to find a location that was as out of the way as possible. And we felt like this is probably the best
But
place.
they're gonna fence it with a similar material, so the outside fence will be similar, but surrounded by the dumpster. Just no roof on it. Although we did talk about putting some type
But
of.
do we know how far it's going past them? It looks like it's like 3 feet or
Past what?
past the garbage chute wall.
Probably a foot or two, yeah.
Well, again, this is just kind of a concept.
So if we tell them, hey, you gotta put it even with the garbage.
I think we were trying to keep, you see there's kind of a curb cut there where some vehicles do go across that grass. We were trying to keep that open. Because I think there are, I don't know.
That's an access.
So part of it is to move this over, that's why they're moving it over here, widen it,
Yeah.
so there's a bigger
Oh,
stride.
that's-
But if you're comfortable with this, then we can proceed, or Steve and his team can proceed in the lease terms and arrangement.
And that's the going rate still, even though.
So when I hate to say this almost, but I did a lot of these leases 25 years ago, when we were first starting, they were going for 9,000 or 10,000 a year. And with that 4% escalation, we're now up to about 30,000. Tells you how fast that increases. So
Is Tom okay with it?
I'm great with it.
So I'll just make a comment about, I have a concern about the concept of the poles. But I know, it's long past my concern, maybe because they're everywhere. But I had a concern when I was on the school board, if the safety for kids, I'm still, because you read different things. So I know that's a big topic and my concern is not gonna stop it, but I just want to go on record saying I'm worried about the safety of those, anywhere.
safety in what regard?
So just what's coming from the poles and it's like when you see big power lines and nothing grows underneath them and everyone says that they're safe. There's no issues. So I just have a question in my head about, is this safe? But anyway.
And along those lines, there are a few citizens in Orem that are concerned about that, and we hear from time to time that, and the other one in Orem, we walked through the park with them and they kind of pointed out that there's, things that don't grow as well there or whatever. Can they, as they put this in, just verify that they're using the latest safety technologies and precautions, so that might be concerned with that, so that at least we're doing everything we can to really concerned in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we can ask them, to verify that this is the latest technology and the best technology, that sort of thing.
Technically, they would have liability if it's not, right?
They what?
They would have liability if it's not, so you think they would figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually, laws out there that prevent anybody from making a claim based on electromagnetic regulations, yeah.
Oh, lovely.
And actually, it says that approving authorities can't deny on that basis either.
So we're gonna
Good luck.
exempt you and.
So Jason, can you go back to the light on fill two? Right there, so that's the outfill, so those poles right there, is there any way maybe to do a pad or something, goes around the bottom of it? If some kid's overzealous and wants to catch a pop fly, he runs into it.
Is that the same pole?
The cushion,
Yeah, could,
Just a different view of the same pole?
That's,
no, that's fine, the snack shack.
Like you'd see around like a football pole, the end zone, yeah,
that's outside of the fence, but you're worried about if you're practicing.
Like a choke in a park, because you're on the left.
isn't that
Oh,
your
this,
Yeah.
left field line?
Just like a goalpost you see on a football field.
That's a left field, I don't know what he's talking. Left field, out, that's the outfield, so
you're talking this
if
one,
it's a foul ball, he could hit that hole even though it's been there forever.
so that's just a light pole, so that's something the city would.
We can put something.
Yeah.
Would help somebody.
Yeah, they can do council.
I mean, if they hit it, it wouldn't be probably less damage.
Like an apron around the bottom of the pole is what you're talking about?
Or like you have around a goalpost.
Like a
Trying to
cushion
go-
that
yeah,
you
like
have
a big
during
phone,
baseball season.
Kind of Velcros on
And
the
it
side.
maybe goes up 6 feet or.
Okay, got you.
So if somebody hits it, then it's not a,
Talking this one.
correct,
We can ask them.
because that's right.
Well, that's not a sales.
That's a city pole.
That's just a city.
No, I know, but he's talking about having to put it on the new pole.
Cushion.
No, he's
Aren't you? No.
No, I mean, I was talking about this pole, I thought that was.
Is that the end zone?
Oh, I thought you-
Okay. I don't know, my turn.
Yeah.
I think it is.
All right, anybody else got any comments or concerns? We need to vote or?
No, sure, we're good going forward now.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, sounds good. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so why doesn't everyone just grab your food fairly quickly and then just come back to your seat and we'll carry on. Oh, we need to have a break. Dave Spencer, would you like to say the prayer?
Our dear Heavenly Father, we bear as a force this day, from many blessings and from the beautiful weather we're having, and help you to live in this great city. We're thankful for the opportunity to serve. And bless us to intersect the bodies this evening and have the joy of living. We say, see you next Christ.
Thank you.
Most of them.
That's because Chris was talking fish.
Well, it just.
There's something
I didn't even notice that.
No. That would risk it.
No, they should get this.
Drive tonight, Scott?
Do you have, if the presentation to find out?
What time it is?
Okay.
Yes.
But I'm still not clear which one of those.
No.
It's not in a direct line. Because it's outside the fence.
Yeah.
How was it? Well, we can't share it. But we wanted to be at the expensive poll, right?
Actually, we wanted to take out. That's right. Hey, sorry. Yeah.
Same.
Too bad.
Hey, Chris, focus.
Yeah,
we had dinner.
Yes. Hey, we saw Joseph's application today.
So-
He wants to be a laborer in concrete or asphalt. Because I saw it, is it $20?
Yeah.
So you're gonna be, is it applied to the asphalt and concrete? But it'll earn every penny.
I'll still do it.
So he wants to learn. Is he still dating? I met her. I think it was yeah, she used to beat me when I saw her. Yeah. Since then.
I never did so either.
Just for. All right, we're gonna move on. We've got limited time, so we're gonna move on to our Hillcrest Park discussion.
Hillcrest Park, you ready? I'll tell you what, that dinner that you were eating smells mighty fine.
We're fair.
Mayor, council, we appreciate the opportunity to come and give you an update on the Hillcrest Park project. You recall that we have Blue Line Design here, representing Blue Line Design is Brent Potter, as well as Scott Stevens, and representing WPA Architecture over here in the corner is Bruce Fallon. These three gentlemen will present tonight. And what we've done is we've taken the desires and your recommendation from the last gathering that we were here and implemented that into a new design. And I think that you will be very pleased with what you see. There is a 3D model that we would like to show you tonight as well. It gives us a very good, clear picture of what this park will actually look like. I was actually in hopes of having representatives from Bud Maha's Construction here as well. As you might recall, they have been selected as the CMGC contractor, but unfortunately, they were not available to be here tonight. So we're gonna turn the time to Scott, and he'll guide us through that, and we'll just address any questions that you may have as we go along.
Yeah, thanks, Lane. So what we have here, this is the concept that we last showed you, what was it, about 2 months ago? And so, since that time, we've continued to make some adjustments and modifications to the design as things have progressed. One of the things that came out in the last work session was circulation around the park. There was concern that there was not a way to get around on the north side around these courts, so we've addressed that. And additionally, we've made some other updates. We'd like to go through those with you today. So this is the current design for the Hillcrest Park. One of the things to look at with the design, this is circulation routes. So what we have done here is we've added a pathway on the north side of these pickleball courts that allows you to do a loop as shown in red. We've actually got a few different walking loops that are highlighted here with the corresponding distances. Obviously, as you know, people are walking the park, there's a number of different routes and options that they could take. But we feel like adding the walkway on the north side there, that provides a little bit additional flexibility with our design. Makes it a little more serviceable to get pickleballs if you know somebody hits it over the fence or whatnot. Additionally, it kind of makes this center area a little bit more quiet. And so this is kind of more geared toward the people playing pickleball. A couple other circulation items we want to talk to you about. So with the building, this will be kind of the primary entrance here on the south side, which connects to the parking area. Secondary entrance would be here on the north side. And there would also be concessions potentially in this area. Restrooms would be accessed from this north side. So there's a lot of activity happening there on the north side.
The round gazebo is new construction?
Right there. Everything's new construction except for the school.
Right.
So yes, so this is the splash pad, where we're proposing for the splash pad. So that's located just off of the restrooms. Also additionally, there's some mechanical space within the existing school that we're going to be utilizing for the pumps and the vault and everything else that's associated with the filtration, the coordination, all that stuff is associated with the water feature. That will all be serviced from that building. And then the areas around there, we'll talk about this a little bit more, is some shade and seating areas.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Splash pads usually are moms and kids, and so family dressings / restrooms are really important for, because you're kind of trying to, confine your children. So are we gonna have quote family restrooms or dressing rooms around there at all?
I believe,
Yes.
that there are two.
There are two large restrooms that are family style, big enough for mom and a child and children.
Okay.
And then change.
Okay, it's just really hard to keep them, we're trying to change them.
That's a good point, very good point. Bruce has got us covered on it.
That's because I did it yesterday with my grandkids. I'm like, stop, come in the room, come on.
So 2 single occupancy restrooms.
Well, there'll be actually 14 stalls within that restroom area. They'll all be gender neutral stalls, and 2 of them will be large enough that you can get in with family to help little children and so forth. Dress and whatnot. Did I state that correctly, Bruce?
Yes, you got it.
Are they men and women's or are they?
Men and women and also family.
Okay. You said they're gender neutral, right?
Gender neutral, yes.
So, just explain that.
All of them are gender neutral?
Yes,
Oh,
all 14 of them are gender neutral.
Can I answer that? So there's
Yes,
just, they're individual stalls with a door, walls from floor to ceiling. So they're each enclosed, and then like I said, the 2 larger ones that are meet accessibility requirements as well, but it basically goes off to the rest of the world while you take care of your business.
You have full privacy.
Yes, just as if you went to the restroom right out here.
Do they have a door or a stall, or what are they like?
It's a door.
Solid.
Exterior entrance, I mean, you don't go in and then enter the door.
It'd be like a half bath at your house.
Yes. pretty
It's like a
much.
porta potty.
So why do the general, why don't we just do men and women?
That was the desire of the city to go that direction.
It's the desire of the city to have gender.
No, and I think the conversation really did center on the family nature of it and trying to accommodate families while at the same time accommodating individual private stalls. So that there would be
I actually
accommodation.
prefer not sharing with men, frankly. I like having my own.
Or is
I don't like
it similar to the
rec
rec center though?
Yeah, in terms of the
Yeah,
in terms of the family aspect, yeah.
It's designed in the same manner as the damage.
The rec center has men and women's.
It has a separate locker room. There's a
Yeah.
male and a female locker room that include toilet and shower amenities, but there's also the family.
And all of the bathrooms throughout it are gender neutral, it's just a door, it doesn't matter if men or women using it.
Correct.
So if a mom has her son or whatever, she can kind of let her into the restroom, know that, know what's going on in there, get the door closed. And then the washing area is kind of central to all that.
I don't like sharing with men. I've been going to the rec center and I'm sorry to be graphic, but we're really good.
I think most women would prefer not to go to that restaurant.
You're smiling,
But the
but.
nice thing is,
No, I don't like sharing with anybody, so I.
I'm just saying, I wish there were some that were just women, so then if you wanted to have that, if you wanted to wait, if they were occupied, you could have that choice of waiting to go in one that's just the women, only women go in.
Because you got it now, you've got families, you can have men, women, and family. Right?
Yeah. That's my opinion.
So is it the desire of the council to change our way of thinking with these gender neutral?
So where are the restrooms?
They're up in this corner right in here.
As you come out of the building?
So this sidewalk here will allow an entrance into the bathroom from the outside. There'll be a door on the interior of the building that will allow you to go into the restroom as well.
So similar to what we have in the fitness center where there will be access prevalent in the building. And some of the other, obviously, there's going to be a sport court in the building as well as access from outside the building, like we have into the pool area in the fitness center.
In fact, if we have time, we can actually bring up the drawing, just as one of the electronic device.
I mean, if we wanted a male, female bathrooms separate, because Lene's, yeah.
Say 2 and 2, and then 6 of
Gender neutral.
So if you wanted to wait,
I mean,
not
how
exclusive.
are they gonna add more money, or what's that option?
If you got it
on
up,
that?
you got it on the computer, if you can show us
Yeah, I can show us.
what we're talking
You
about.
wanna bring that up, Chris, you got that?
Just crashed on this.
Okay. So how about this, how if we continue with what our discussion is here, and then we'll come back to the restrooms, is that okay? Do that? Okay, let's go ahead.
Okay, yes, we want to talk with you a little bit about the splash pad area. As mentioned, it's here shown in blue. So kind of the basis of design, this is a comparably sized splash pad to what we're anticipating for this project. With several rows of nozzles kind of around this concentric circle.
is this one somewhere near us or just a stock photo?
So this isn't necessarily near us, but this is Casper, Wyoming.
It's fun.
And so, yeah, so with the nozzles on here, they have the ability to kind of turn on and off in sequence. There's a central nozzle in the middle that we anticipate being a larger nozzle that would be more of a showpiece. But it kind of be motion, kind of constantly things turning on and off. When the system's not running, there'll be a flat ground plane. So no above ground components associated with it. There's kind of a view of it coming from the west. But surrounding the splash pad, there would be areas, there'd be seating with benches, there'd also be seating with tables. And also be abutting some lawn areas, so the goal would be to provide a variety of seating for people around that splash pad.
There's the answer.
Council Member Spencer, you notice the shade structure.
Yes.
Lavish room.
Nice.
It's really nice. And then outside of the building, this is an outdoor plaza area. It's kind of an outdoor extension of the building. And so we envision this being a place that, you know, during, when the building's open, you know, people might come inside, outside. But this is just off the kind of the northeast side of the building. You see a trellis structure here. Some of the elements within this area, there's outdoor ping pong. And so if you're not familiar with that, it's pretty robust tables that, you know, they can weather the elements and withstand vandalism that are out there. It's up to people to kind of bring their own paddles and ping pong balls. There's also a couple 9-square courts that could be used by the public. And then there'd be seating and space for people to sit outside with tables, night lighting. And again, the goal of this space is just to kind of create an outdoor extension of the building.
And during the daytime, that'd be quite hot.
Yeah, and so I think, and actually it's not shown here, but we'd anticipate having some shade incorporated with some of the, would be out there as well.
So the pickleball courts are lit, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Really nice. Thanks, Tom.
So I've seen these at the park. I was in El Paso, Texas, and I saw these. They're like cement ping pong or whatever they are.
Oh, yeah,
And people were loving it, so I've seen those in other cities.
yeah, I think it'd be a fun element. So I think, you know, what we like to do is show you kind of a 3D animation rendering that Brent's put together. It's representative of kind of the general layout of the park. There's certain elements like playground features and stuff that, well, there's some stuff shown there that's not necessarily representative of what would be installed. We're still working through the design process on the number of the elements, but it should hopefully give you a little bit of an understanding of kind of the general layout and what we're anticipating. Are there any questions before we go to that?
I have a question. Are you foreseeing any big supply chain issues? I was told that cement right now in Utah is just impossible to get.
Yeah.
Get cement, right?
So it's actually, yeah, the cement, yeah, the actual powder that goes into it, yeah, so there's a shortage of that. There's shortages with a number of things. I think that's one of the goals with bringing the contractor on board is to help us identify some of the lead time on those type of items. And so that we can get them in the queue and make sure that.
The short answer to your question is, yes, we are anticipating supply chain issues, no question. Just kind of the world we're living in right now.
And everything, even from sprinklers to even plant materials, still.
That concrete tank's gonna use a lot of cement.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
What's that one?
So basically you can see we're coming in from the west side, southwest corner, flying into the park, and we're going to basically do a sweep of the playground area. And a lot of the I'll say more heavily active areas on the southern part of the oval. And again, like Scott said, playground areas are representative of a playground area. The specific equipment may not necessarily be those items. We are looking to incorporate a lot more natural play elements into the areas, but that area on the west was for younger kids, moving into an older kids section.
Any shade over some of these?
And yeah, we have on the southern side, we'll have more shaded benches and areas for the parents to watch their kids, followed by more of a demonstration area. It'll be more planted in the northeast corner of the site. But once we zoom out here, you get a real good grasp of the scale of this central.
The playground, that's on the bottom, what is that? What is the?
It's
Mark.
it is the mulch, the modified playground, engineered wood fiber.
So, is all together playground, is that a better thing, having that composite or?
I mean, we're at the end of its life, we're gonna have to replace that one probably pretty soon. It's a yearly maintenance thing. It's not the easiest thing to take care of, the ground.
I mean,
This is the poured in place rubber.
Yeah, but is that the best thing for a playground? Is what we're looking at?
I think the softball is the best option. Yeah, I mean, standard use and all that. It's like, the rubber material was for kids, for accessibility. Sure. It is significantly more expensive.
What is the life?
There's a 7-year warranty on it.
We have had warranty work on that from the very first
I mean,
season.
have they improved anything?
You know, we haven't engaged them to see what like kind of latest technology is. I would guess for that size of playground, 8 years ago, our part was 250,000 just for the surface. You're probably easy pushing $500,000 or more. Yeah. I mean, it is nice. I mean, everybody would love it on every playground. It's different.
It is nice, I like it, but.
But it doesn't wear.
It doesn't wear very well. High maintenance. To do the turn around.
That's good.
Under the 9 square would be some artificial turf rather than natural turf.
Is that part of the plan to redo the outside of the building or will it?
Yes,
Okay.
very similar to what you're seeing there with some facades and a roof over concession area and so forth. Very similar.
Is that all artificial turf? Looks nice.
Yes, we heard you guys, you all get going on a crisscross.
What do you think, Brent?
We have more stuff.
So are we gonna do some things for the city where people can donate money, for, like in the back, you have a brick in your name or a tree or a bench or just a way to offset some of this?
I mean, I'm sure we could begin that process. Usually, we've done it past times, it's been within about the last 6 months of a project.
Yeah.
That's when you get people excited about the small donation opportunities.
Because I think a tree would be pretty cool, someone said we donated that tree, they don't need a plaque, but just.
As long as they let us, replace it.
Yeah, right. 30 years.
And then we have access to the senior, they have access in the parks.
Yes.
I'm not.
Right, from the rehab center.
This, you were last time telling us about need for increased parking. I'm assuming this reflects that.
This does, so the original concept, I think, had one kind of bay of parking, if you will. So an additional bay has been added to this design here.
You know how many parking spots you have?
I don't know now off the top of my head.
I guess in the upper 300s. Maybe not that, but.
Do you think this is pretty representative of parking spot?
Yeah, this is representative of the general quantity of parking spots. Yeah, so the bulk of it being up here in the front with some additional in the back, and then even some along the side here as well.
Jamie, the well's not gonna be there now, or just?
So right now, we are not gonna put the well on site, but are going to reserve a spot for future deployment. It's just pricing right now is crazy expensive. So we're not gonna put a well on site right now, but we are gonna reserve it.
Then the other thing we've talked about was opening that road or not opening that road on the northwest
we do have, you can see, there is access to the rehab center to the west. But there's not vehicular access into the Woodbury property to the west. So one of the other conversations we had is wanting to make the.
On
Yeah.
faces
Yeah,
university.
There's foot traffic.
Foot traffic, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
We were also very kind of mindful of parking for pickleballs, so that, for example, you didn't have to park in the south parking lot. We wanted to make pickleball parking accessible on the north and west corners. So that's why you see, for example, some additional stalls. And then down the west frontage of the property, you can see some additional stalls that have been placed there. So rather than having, for example, everybody cart whatever they need into the building or to the splash pad or to the pickleball courts, you can kind of access parking based on proximity to where the amenity is that you're interested in using or enjoying. You also will see that we have provided pedestrian access to University Parkway. Originally, there was a discussion about having 2 access points there. We are not really that excited about providing a lot of access, but having 1 access we think is obviously appropriate.
And it closely ties in with the crosswalk for the BRT.
And it's, yeah, and it's tied to the crosswalk, so.
How about as far as the inside of the school, what's going on there?
Inside of what?
Inside the school?
Inside the building itself? You wanna bring your building real quick, metal answer real quick? We've got a couple more minutes, okay?
A couple more minutes, but we need to come back to the restroom conversations. There's a lot of interest in that.
That's gonna be part of this drawing. Let's go.
That's just me. We can send out a for later, right?
Yeah, got it.
Anybody know how to get this?
That's
zero waste.
you know how to.
Just do an HDMI connection.
There's another one right next to it, a silver guy.
Yeah, this is the.
Yeah, it's like super much.
Yeah, we don't have it in this. You have email.
Do you need a lightning adapter or what? No, it's got the lightning adapter to an HDMI, usually just all plugs in, it shows up, so. Yeah.
Airplane. Yeah, so is there questions that we can address while we're waiting for that?
I mean, I can maybe just pass it around.
So I think where we left it was, we got some people have concerns about the way bathrooms are organized, so I guess we just need to talk about the pros and cons of the different setups.
So how many bathrooms do you have?
So yeah, that's the bathroom layout. So there's one large restroom with 14 stalls that are each individually enclosed with a door, floor to ceiling. Two large accessible stalls that would work for the family or just changing room.
Similar to the way the rec center is
Right.
on the non-male female.
Right.
Okay.
And so I'm assuming, I've never been, I've been to the rec center, but I've never used the restroom, so. And then just a central wash sink. Our experience is we try to leave those open from side to side so that the visibility, from overseeing what's happening in that restroom is important, so.
So this large restroom, there could be a lady in the stall next to me.
Correct.
But there's not a stall.
But there's a separate room.
There's
There's
a
a
wall. It's a room. Have you been to the rec center changing room? It's a room.
I'm looking at the picture, Tom.
Yeah.
I understand what a rec center is. I understand what a room is.
Yeah,
I'm
these
looking
are
at that
not
picture.
stalls.
That's
They're
not a
not
stall. That's not a stall.
It's like, it's
What's that
it's
called? Where the
wall.
door going into
I
the
mean,
water?
it can be.
But it's floor to
displayed.
ceiling.
Yeah, but it's still a stall.
Correct.
I mean, what do you call that? You open it, you go and sit on the clock. What's that called?
Yeah, it's a half bath.
So it has a full door, a standard door, there's no openings.
There's no gap at the, like a standard toilet partition.
Then you share the sinks and you.
Correct.
So there's no passing.
But how big are
There's no
those
little
stalls? How wide are those?
They're minimum 3 feet wide.
Is there a benefit?
So if I need to tuck myself in or something, I gotta do it in the stall, because I can't go out from the window, the mirror,
Right,
but women do.
I understand.
Where do you, are you changing your clothes in there too?
You could, but most of the time it's gonna be in the two larger stalls at
Here you
the
go.
end.
Is there a benefit from a cleanliness standpoint or cleaning or is that? Either way?
I think there's sixes.
Couldn't you just do a wall down the middle and you got shirt sink and then have male
Yeah.
and female or?
Well, then, but the issue you have there is, generally you need more women opportunities.
Or if you have a dad bringing a young lady, or a mom bringing a son.
You actually need more than
So-
2 family dressing rooms.
Yeah.
And I'm,
And they need to be separate.
and they can go either way. I'm kind of Lene, I really like the idea of having some female and male, maybe a few gender neutral somehow, in between. But I'd rather have more family dressing rooms.
A hybridized option, I mean, you could put, in Palisade, you could put a male or a female.
Just
in those
have the
doors.
existing restroom.
I mean, if you're worried about,
Oh, just the side, yeah.
yeah,
Well, I
just.
think,
around
so
the
when
outside.
I say, to me, that's one issue, the other issue is just that when you exit from doing your business, I tuck in, I check, but this is just almost uncomfortable for me.
I'm gonna second that.
I guess you guys can't go to the party.
So you put a wall down there and you have men and women, so
Bryce, did you?
I just wanted to answer sort of to your point, the pros, at least from the staff side, having managed the family change rooms environment, everything like that. Number one, this would allow us to put, or to have some like glass partitions and glass doors into the hand sink washing area. And so from like a child safety perspective, this keeps more eyes on what is a very vulnerable space for us, so it makes it more of a shared space. The second would additionally, maybe to the size of the room, prevent an environment like this in the city park from becoming a potentially like a shelter or like an unintended consequence of someone having a large room with a sink and a toilet and 35 square feet of space where they could sort of camp out for the day. And so, not to say that that has to go one way or the other, but the line of thinking was to keep the intended purpose of these restrooms, high turnover, high visibility, and trying to balance that with some of these other concerns. So that was sort of the reason that we explored something like this, from a maintenance, cleanliness, and safety traffic area.
I just see a little girl going in there to use the bathroom and some man following her in there and going to
Absolutely.
the stall and then him coming out, washing his hands next to her, talking to her. She's in this like space that's supposed to be safe. And maybe mom says, go to the bathroom, come on out when you're done. This makes me uncomfortable.
I have the same concern. And parks seem to collect some of these folks sometimes. Because you have no safety to know who's in the stall next to you. I mean, it's the same thing, so I have 5 daughters, so one of my, when they were young, if they're gonna go in one of the stalls, I don't know who's next to them. It's not like they're going in the women's restroom.
Well, the benefit is you can go in there with her, whereas you wouldn't normally be able to go in there with your dog.
Certainly looked at other options, we didn't know what it is.
Yeah, and I'd lobby for 4 family changing rooms because
And maybe the family change rooms, you can access it from the
From the
outside,
outside.
that's separate from the internal.
So then the dads, who are there with their kids, can they sit, they don't have to, it's not all women's
In parks.
men's.
And maybe before family ones, that's on the corner and then.
Yeah, but it's for indoor and outdoor, so.
So there's no urinals in that, right?
Correct.
There's no urinals, just all toilets.
yeah, we just look at that to find a better solution. Thank you.
My iPad is.
What you're saying is that part of that solution would be if you split it, then you would have to have more family places,
Well,
right?
I'm telling you, 2's not gonna be enough. We have 19 at our pool and I was in Provo yesterday and they had 18. And there were maybe 2 that were available. Now granted, it's a pool, but a splash pad, you're gonna have several families and you don't wanna wait so long that, one's gonna shower it or change the, I mean, it can be 15, 20 minutes to wait for a.
What are you doing for
No.
Provo?
So we have no, we're not gonna have showers,
No, but she's just saying.
On some
changing
Provo
your
ones
kids.
do, some do
but
not.
these won't, I'm saying.
No, okay, if these, well, you might wanna rinse off a kid who's been in a splash pad, though, I don't know.
So splash pad, so I think where we're winding up is we would have the men and women separated, and we would have a number of family restrooms, right?
So more than 2 family.
More than 2, I mean, ideally I'd like 4, cause I see a lot of moms bringing their kids here.
If you pull the picture,
Do you have an opinion
one
on
there in
family
the
restroom
corner, they can be accessed from the outside, and then we figure out the wall and then.
Yeah. Really, it's a matter of, I think a lot of it will come down to cost, as we now have a men's locker room, a women's locker room, and several family change rooms. What percentage of the park is being spent on the restrooms in the park? And it has to be a percentage, so I think until we have a number, a cost evaluation, it's hard to say what the exact right number is, but if we were to do 16 family change rooms.
No, I'm not asking for that.
I know you are, but then we have no park left to build.
But the men and women's section, that should be pretty simple, is the family restrooms would cost more, right? Because
Or the redundancies in the square footage and the fixtures and all of that, so we start to double spend, is that a fair representation? We start to double spend on some of the requirements of restrooms at the cost of other amenities in the park.
So Bryce, my question to you, when I go to the Orem, well, half the time your pool's not open, but when it is, there's not as many as in Provo, okay, as far as families, whatever. But I do see a lot of neighborhood kids coming down here, swimming with their moms, doing whatever, and so I never think, like I said, I was in Provo yesterday and there were 2 open ones out of 18. 2. And so 4 to me does not seem excessive or even, I just know what it's like to have a bunch of little kids trying to get them dressed, trying to change their diapers, trying to contain them. And I don't know.
Can I ask at the same time though, you also have a very seasonal use for those, and so that splash pad, you need to kind of balance the needs of year-round use versus seasonal use.
Okay, well, I don't call it dressing room, I call it a family
So
bathroom.
May to September?
I mean,
Memorial Day?
yeah, I mean,
Memorial Day
You'll
is
go back,
Labor Day.
you'll go past September. You
What's
can go in and play
Palisade?
pickleball in November.
No,
What,
when did they
what
shut
happens at Palisade Splash
I think
Pad?
that's a better comparison.
We actually used existing bathrooms when we built the Palisade, so we didn't
Are those
build.
bathrooms
Just
being used a lot? Can people get in and out easily? Are they used for changing rooms, doing them?
I mean, I can't speak to the everyday use.
I don't think there's been issues.
So Debbie, you need a lot more for the women than men, because the women are the ones taking the children in.
most likely.
And the women have stalls, the men you just need a wall of urinals, I mean, it's not like you need a whole bunch of separate stalls for the men.
Well, I've seen a few toilets,
I
but.
mean, a few, yeah, but you know what I mean, it's not, it doesn't have to be the
Okay, but
equal.
I'm also gonna lobby for the playground, that's an extensive playground. Maybe I'm not gonna go swimming, maybe I'm just gonna go to have the boys and the girls go with the mom to go to the bathroom. You don't have to call them dressing room, just call them a family bathroom, but make sure that they're, there's a bench they can sit on to change, but
Okay, so we're gonna have to wrap up, so
I'm sorry.
I'm with
So
you,
I'll-
I'm with you.
it sounds like that's what they want to do, but so we're tasking you to come back to the optimal, cost effective.
Some options, put some costs into that.
And then Renee and Debbie can pay for it.
Hopefully it's excellent. Okay, anything else? We're gonna have to move on. Okay, well, thank you for that. That park looks awesome. It's gonna be amazing, I think.
Very nice.
All right, finally, we just need to run through the agenda for tonight. So let's run through this. So we've only got 8 minutes. So we'll have a regular session, we'll have a call to order, invocation, pledge of allegiance. I don't have anyone for pledge of allegiance, so if anyone has a friend or anyone that's gonna be out there. Seriously? Actually, Stephanie, are you gonna be there?
Definitely.
To the meeting? Would you do the pledge of allegiance? That would be awesome. Thank you. Okay, got that. Then we'll have an annual report from the Summerfest committee. And we'll have an annual report from the Heritage Advisory Commission. We'll have personal appearances. And item 10, we'll have our consent items, which is the ordinance for the care tax revenue. The resolution for civil infractions, that's fines for civil infractions. And the resolution for appointment of a representative to the Utah Lake Authority.
So Mayor, I'm gonna pull that one off, the resolution for civil infractions, because I want to make an amendment that our red curve infractions be 25 instead of 50.
Okay.
Because we found some inconsistencies with the schools and I talked to Aaron about it, there's just no way to really differentiate between.
Okay.
So.
Isn't your concern school zones? Could you say it's 25 in schools, only 58 by a fire?
Maybe do we table it? I don't know. What, did you talk to Aaron about this?
Yeah, so I mean, it's up to you. If you wanna pull it off the consent, it's on the consent agenda.
It is.
right now. And talk about it, if you wanna if you know what you want to amend it to, you could do it at the meeting and then still vote on it. If you feel like you need more time to talk about it outside the meeting, continue it.
Let's just continue it, because I think I'm unclear as to the talking to Aaron about it. It's just legal consistency.
Okay, so we'll just continue that one.
Okay, so the consent items, we'll pull that off. And how does that work? We pull it off and we just talk about it later?
Continue.
Okay.
But I think, Steve, you'd have to pull it off. in order
Yeah.
Can we make a motion to continue it?
Yeah.
Pull it off the consent
So you need a motion to
I'm
pull
sorry,
it off
the
consent.
item.
Item.
And then motion.
and then a motion to continue. And we don't have to have any discussion, we could just do vote,
Yeah.
motion vote,
Yeah.
okay?
Just on that one item, we pull it off, we vote on that, and then we go back to consent items and we vote on the rest, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so will you make the motion to pull that up?
I will.
All right, scheduled items, appointments to boards and commissions.
That's Linda Parkinson.
And actually, let me go back to the Lake Authority. On the Lake Authority, we're gonna have a resolution, and that resolution is gonna be to have Terry go on the new Lake Authority. And then we're gonna move Jeff to the UVU board, work with that.
Are those normally done by resolutions, Jamie, or just an assignment?
It's just because it's the Utah Lake Authority, the new authority. So that's why we have to do it.
They require that in the new state. They said that we would by resolution.
So we won't switch you in this, that'll just be something with this.
I think Linda Parkinson is going to be here.
She's here. Okay, so we've got those two. Both to the neighborhood advisory board. And then, and with that, what are we doing as far as recognize them? We're just gonna recognize them on both, we're not gonna have them.
Yeah, you can have her stand up and she'll.
Okay. The only time we do that is planning commission. And then we've got item 11, 12, public hearing resolution. Let's see, we'll receive public comment on the community development block grant. That's what we discussed.
Yep, so this is what we're actually proposing.
Okay, so this is just public comments, and then if
A
there-
public comment, a brief presentation, not near the one before, more
so
detail,
they will do a minor presentation.
minor presentation, and then now you actually vote on the allocation.
The next we got motion conditional use permits. This is to approve this tower that we were just talking about.
That's what we're talking about, it's a different.
It's on top of the roof of Alpine Credit.
You're doing a presentation on it, Jason? Are you doing a
And that's not an open,
It's not a public hearing, but the mayor can obviously.
So where are we at with that? As far as,
Alpine Credit,
yeah, does everybody agree that are we voting on that?
it's a resolution.
Okay, so we had a conversation about that?
He's in planning commission.
It went through the planning commission?
Yeah, I had a conversation with some of the neighbors, but
Okay, so I mean, I don't know much about this.
And I'll explain in there, but basically they can have them on the roof without having it concealed as a permitted use. Or they can have it concealed and the council has to approve the concealment of the antennas. So it's not a matter of having the antennas on the roof, it's whether or not the council wants them to be concealed as a stealth or not.
Okay.
That's really the question.
We decided if we want that to be concealed or not.
The proposal is to have it concealed.
But if the council chooses not to have it concealed, they're gonna put the antennas on the roof anyway.
Okay,
It's just a matter of, do you want them enclosed like a penthouse, it's enclosed, you can't see the antennas? Or do you want?
so this is a motion to conceal that antenna.
Yes,
And they already have the rights to do this, Jason?
they do.
Okay.
Okay,
The difference is the stealth component has to be approved by the city council.
okay, then we've
So
got,
we don't want a big pine tree up there?
we've got item number,
Plastic you look into.
item number 12, monthly financial summary.
that's just a FYI for your, including your packet.
Okay, so we don't have to discuss that. And we've got anything that Jamie wants to go over, and then we adjourn, and then when we adjourn, don't go away because we're going to, we're gonna move to a closed meeting after this, and that's gonna deal with the police station.
No, it's gonna be in room 107, so
Oh, there's not the conference room down here?
yes.
All right, well, go.
We'll discuss.
What's the meeting?
Take it out, put some mics on. Oh, that one is.
You're gonna do it from here? Perfect. Either one. We just turn the mic on.
Everybody good?
Okay, perfect.
All right, we'd like to call this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome you out tonight. And as a matter of explanation, the reason some of us are dressed up and some of us aren't is we went on a hike up to the water treatment facilities up at the mouth of the canyon, just to educate the city council on how our entire water system works. So it's very educational and very beautiful up there, but that's why we're casual tonight. Some of us.
I did go on.
He did go on the hike, but he went back and changed. So. Yeah.
Who am I sucking up to?
So yeah, put that in the minutes. Okay. To start out with, we've got a special guest here tonight. And to make sure I get this right, is Rajan Zed?
Yes.
Okay, Rajan Zed is the president of the Universal Society of Hinduism, and he is going to offer our prayer.
Okay. Starting with Gayatri Mantra, which is considered the most sacred mantra of Hinduism, I shall be reading from ancient Hindu scriptures, some of us are as old as 1500 before the Common Era, and then interpret in English. May all rise, please. Om Bhur-bhuvah svah tat savitur-varenyam Bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who's inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May he stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma sadgamya, tamsoma jyotirgamya, mrityor mamratam gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada sakta statam karyam karma samachara. Sakto hai charan karma parmapanoti purusha. Karma nevahi samsiddhi mastita jankadya. Loka sangreha mevapi. Sampa shankar tumrahasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavatu, Saha Nobunaktu, Saha Viryan Karba Bahai, Tejasvi Navadita Mastu, Ma Vidvisa Bahai. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. Samniva Kuti, Samna Hirdaniva, Samnamastu Omano, Yathava Susahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts, may your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Razan.
Appreciate
We
it.
appreciate that. Now we'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance. And I've asked Stephanie Bisnoff, she could come lead us in that. Please rise.
Please repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Stephanie. Item 8.1, we'd like to have an annual report from the Summerfest Committee. And this will be Steve Downs.
Katrina, our Summerfest chair.
Oh, okay. And Katrina Beal. Thank you.
Yes. So.
Let me, if I could introduce, we have a Summerfest commission that does so much of the heavy lifting every year for Summerfest. Debbie's been our council representative for a few years and can speak to the fact of, and to attest to how much they do. Katrina has been volunteering for a few years and this year took on the role as chair. But Katrina's service to the community goes well beyond Summerfest. Her and another mother in our community are the minds behind the All Together Playground. And so we've known Katrina for 7 or 8 years, loved her that entire time, and our appreciation for her just grows as she takes on new roles, continues to serve the community. Yeah.
So our theme for this year was Orem United. We wanted to bring Orem together and include that as our Summerfest theme. And thanks. So our Summerfest mission statement was showcasing the citizens of Orem through service and recognition of service. These are our partners that we are working with this year and our supporters, and a list of all of them that are supporting us this year.
I think in total, we get just over $60,000 from our sponsors to help cover much of the cost of Summerfest. So this, we really couldn't do what we do without their help.
No, they're huge.
You know, most of, I mean, there is some in kind. I would say the majority of them are financial contributors though, for sure.
So this is our Summerfest committee. I'm the chair. Liz Wolf is the vice chair. Christy Eakins, Bill Blyle, Annie Turner, Ashley Mann, Haley Barlow, Ashley Coleman, John and Catherine Whitaker, Shelley Seastrand, and Vanessa Sewell. Sorry. And then these are the staff with Orem City that help us out with Summerfest, and they work with us every year on it. And then we wanted to invite the public and the city council to all of our events that are happening during the week of Summerfest. We have activities every single day, Monday through Saturday, lots of fun activities. And it starts Monday with the Summerfest kickoff and Saturday with the parade and the baby contest and fireworks. Our Summerfest magazine will be coming out later this week, hopefully tomorrow or later, and it will have all of the details and specifics of everything there. But we hope to see you all there, and we hope to see lots of Orem residents and public there supporting our Summerfest activities this year. Thank you very much.
Any questions at all from the council, or Debbie, would you, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much. This is a time-intensive committee, especially this time of year, and I appreciate that. I do want to draw up the fact that we're having a new carnival. And do you want to talk a little bit about the carnival and what that's going to be an improvement? And I think that's going to be it'll be well received. So
Yeah,
Stephen?
we did. Yeah, we hired a new carnival company this year. The company we used prior, we'd used for a number of years, but there was some a variety of issues that are still under litigation. So we won't speak too much to it, but it caused us to go out to bid for a new company. We advertised it. We got this company. They're based out of California. They travel all over the West. Most of them station in California, Arizona, because they can go year round in those areas in the winter. So they station there. Some of the changes this year will be all you can ride wristbands. We haven't provided that in the past. everything's being done electronic through kind of self-kiosk and cards that you'll tap onto the rides to use your tickets. And one of the best things, as Council Member LeRae mentioned, is at the end of every Summerfest, there's always people that had all these unused tickets and they had already paid for them. And now anything that had been paid for and unused, they can be used for food as well. So people should be able to utilize all the money that they may have put in. It's a very reputable company that has done some pretty significantly, some large events, and we're looking forward to working with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Can I
Lene?
just say, I know Kat, she's a neighbor of mine, and she is one of the most hardest working people I know. And this is amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate, she's a busy mom, but she somehow fits on all this service.
And you saw her, there's another, her husband's on the committee as well. So she
Yeah.
was doing the work of two, and it really is amazing.
I talked him into it.
Bill contributes as well.
Yes, he does.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Next up, we've got a presentation, an annual report from the Heritage Advisory Commission with Russ Nedden.
Your Honor. So Russ Nedden for the Heritage Commission, just checking in front of each of you should be a brochure for the upcoming Memorial Day event next Monday at 9 o'clock. I'd like to extend a personal invitation to all of you and a couple of you because you're on the program. The Orem Heritage Commission is a group of volunteers who are appointed by the mayor. We're assigned 7 members. We currently have 6. So if anybody's interested, we can always use a little bit of help. And some of our folks are getting a little bit long in the tooth and they've been serving for a long time. So I'd like to mention American Legion Post 72, Commander Brad Prescott. He, along with Dan Barrett, at the city cemetery, been instrumental in updating the flags, poles, in addition to and adding an additional flagpole for the POW-MIA flag. So that's been just recently mounted. So if you get a chance to drop by, the cemetery looks incredible and the memorial itself looks great. Any questions for me? All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on to our personal appearances. Just like to read through this. Time has been set aside for the public to express their ideas, concerns, and comments on the items not scheduled as public hearings on the agenda. Those wishing to speak are encouraged to show respect for those who serve the city. Comments should focus on issues concerning the city. Those wishing to speak should have signed in before the beginning of the meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And then I have a list here of 3 people that have signed up, and I'll just call you up one at a time. First, we've got Courtney Packer.
Okay, great. So I am with I'm a volunteer on the steering committee of 100 Women Who Care, and it is a pass-through organization that helps nonprofit organizations locally. So what we do is we get together once a quarter, and we have 3 nonprofit organizations. They need to be 501c3s that are local, come and present. And they share with us their mission and the projects that they're working on. And all of the women who are present vote on who should get that money. So kind of think of it as a nonprofit Shark Tank. And the winning organization gets $100 from each of the women present, whether that woman voted for them or not. Recently, we have given money to an organization called TLC, Timpanogos Legal Counsel. They help with volunteer attorneys who facilitate people who are in need of some legal counsel and lawyers who can't afford it otherwise. An organization in Orem that won not too long ago was called My Story Matters. And one of their projects is to help people who are in the prison system to get out and live better lives rather than to recommit and recommit and recommit. It is a wonderful opportunity to help the community. It's a beautiful opportunity to remember that there's good in the world and to be part of that. So I just wanted to bring that up with you guys because that's something that we hope that you'd be interested in helping to further the cause of local nonprofit organizations, so we can try to get some more of that money going to Orem nonprofits. We welcome you, even if whether you're a woman or not. We're trying to be more inclusive these days. And the only thing that can be seen as a downside of this organization is that we're not at 100 women. We are about 25 or 30 strong. We started this chapter about 3 years ago, which COVID has kept down quite a bit. Salt Lake City jumped up to 200 members really, really quick. So in the Utes Cougar race, we are not doing well. So we want to try to up those numbers and welcome you to join and be part of something beautiful. And I have these. I don't know if I can just leave them here for anybody who would be willing or wanting.
So Courtney, could you just say how people can best contact your organization that want to be involved?
Sure. So you can go to our website. Okay, thank you. If you wanted to check out more details, you can go to our website. It's 100womenutahvalley.com. And there's contact information on there. And then it's Utah Valley, 100womenutahvalley@gmail.com. And yeah, any other questions?
So that's the email address, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the website is?
It's the same.
Same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's .com or @gmail.com.
Okay. Debbie?
So you said every woman gives $100. So is it like you come with $100 to give that day and you do that multiple times a year, or what?
Yeah,
Tell me about
so
that.
we do it once a quarter and you come with a check, or recently what we've done is we've linked up with a website called Grapevine, and you can just give easily that way. You can even just sign up for automatic payments quarterly, make it real easy if you want. So,
okay, thank you.
Okay, that sounds like a great cause.
Okay.
We'll try and spread the word.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we've got Cody Hell.
Hello, I'm Cody Hale. I have lived here in Orem since 1984, and I've raised my family, and our grandchildren are now being raised here in Orem, and we've had a wonderful, wonderful stay here in Orem, and plan on continuing to do that because we love it here. I'm also a member of the Orem Arts Council and have been so since its inception. And back in 1990, we founded the Hale Center Theater Orem. And as a founding member, I would like to give a heartfelt thanks to all who have supported the arts through the City of Orem's care tax. From every person who has spent their hard-earned money in the City of Orem, to the leadership of this city that has decided in the last 15 years where this money is to be allocated. These funds have allowed us to keep ticket prices low and raise our production values to the quality that you would see on Broadway, where ticket prices are in the hundreds of dollars. What a joy it has been to bring this quality of theater to Orem and to see the enrichment it brings into so many lives. It has also allowed us to create an educational program for youth that brings this community some of the best theater for youth that I've ever seen. When I see the impact that it has on the youth, I see that it's changing their lives, changing them for the better. When I see the amazing talent that has been fostered through this program in these productions, I cannot hold back the tears. It's just amazing to see the talent that's being fostered. What an honor it has been to be the recipient of these funds for all these years. And I just wanted to say thank you, sincerely.
Thank you, Cody. Last on the list, we've got Matthew Schaefer.
Is that Matthew Schucher?
SCH. I think I thought that was just a sign-in sheet. I'm on the agenda.
Oh, okay. So you're not on this. I mean, you don't need to speak right now. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we're going to go to item number 10, the consent items.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we remove item 10.2, the resolution fines for civil infractions from the consent items to continue.
Okay. Somebody want to second that?
Second.
I think the motion was just to pull it off the consent agenda to move it to a regular item.
Move it to a regular item.
So
We'll vote that way
she can
first.
do that by herself?
Yeah.
Do we need a second for that?
I actually think you can just, if one person requests to be taken off the consent, I think that's good enough.
Okay.
So.
And then I'd also like to make a motion that we continue that item until our next meeting on June. What's our next one? 14th. Are we good?
Is it?
Yep.
Second on that motion. I think that one needs a second, does it not?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
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 The motion passes.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the other two consent items.
I second that motion.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The consent items pass.
I do want to thank the Hale. I think that was a very classy, heartfelt appreciation. And I just wanted to appreciate the work that they have done. And we wish them the very best as they've had the good fortune to find funding in Pleasant Grove. Just know that we appreciate the programming, the wonderful programs, the artistic. I'm a season ticket holder and I have appreciated. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I appreciate Cody's comments and we appreciate the service he's done on our Arts Council and consider him a great Orem citizen. So I just wanted to make that comment. That's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to agree with that the Hale's a great organization and they've done a lot of good things here in Orem. We're going to miss them as they move to Pleasant Grove and we wish them the best. And we wish that our citizens here in Orem will continue to support them as we think it's a great organization. So we thank you for that. Okay, moving on to item 11.1, appointments to boards and commissions. We've got the Neighborhood Advisory Board, and we want to appoint Linda Parkinson to that board. Linda, could you stand up?
Does that require a motion and second?
Yeah, to approve them to the board. Yeah.
Did you make that
Oh.
motion?
No.
I'd love to move to appoint Linda Parkinson to the Neighborhood Advisory Board. I've known Linda for 30 or 40 years. Linda, thank you for coming today.
And I'll second that. I invited Linda to join our commission. I'm in charge of that commission and she attended our first meeting as a citizen. Fantastic woman. Thank you so much for your dedication. We appreciate that, Linda.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The appointment passes. Next, we've got a public hearing comment period. This evening we'll receive public comment on community development block grants, projected use of funds for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. And we already had a significant presentation on that, and we'll just have a follow-up presentation, and then we'll have a public hearing and a vote.
Hello, Mayor and council members. Thank you for having us before you once again. And this will be a quick presentation, follow up to our presentation last month. That's the slide. So it's a summary of our allocations for our CDBG funding that we've received. The funding was announced last week and the amount was a little bit less than we expected. So it was reduced by nationally 4.5%, and Orem's reduction was a little bit higher than that. So here's a summary of our recommendations now. So we have adjusted the roof at the senior center. Understanding is that they do have sufficient funding to still do that project. So we're using some savings there to help cover that. And we're also adjusting the CDBG administration to help with that, offset that reduction in funding we didn't know when we made the recommendation initially what that funding amount would be. And so that's our recommendation, is to how to adjust for the lower funding.
Yeah, we reduced all the public services by 6.3%. That was about the percentage that we had the reduction as well. And then we can only do 20% admin. So we had to reduce the admin to come within that 20%.
This is our total recommendation. That does include some carryover and some income from the program. And so we presented most of this to you last month. So are there any questions?
I did have a follow. Last month, I raised the alarm about MAG cutting back their Meals on Wheels. Do you know what the status of that is, and where is the funding? I mean, I heard they found money somewhere.
Yeah, they were able to receive some emergency ARPA funds from the county. I actually am on the advisory board for MAG for seniors. We had a meeting today and they said that they were okay. So that was good to hear.
Short term or long term, did they say?
They didn't say, but they said that they feel like their budget is going to be okay.
Okay, so thank you for following up with that.
Any other questions? We'll open the public comment. If there's any public comment.
Hi, Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Janelle Christensen, and I'm the Executive Director of Family Haven, one of the recommended recipients of these CDBG funds. And I just wanted to come and thank you for the consideration. These funds make a huge difference to the clients that we serve in our mission to prevent and treat child abuse and family trauma for families in our community. Thank you for the consideration. We appreciate the partnership that we've had in the past and look forward to being able to continue serving the community with these funds moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll close the public comment portion. And then someone would like to make a motion to pass this allocation.
I'll make a motion. The city council, by resolution, the city will receive public comment on the public development grant block CBG project use of funds for fiscal 2022, 2023.
Second.
Is this a motion to receive public comment or to approve this, Steve? I'm not sure the motion was accurate. It's what's written on the agenda, but I'm not sure it was accurate.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually looking at too. It is listed as just receiving public comment on the projected use of funds. Maybe Kenna can clarify, are we actually trying to approve the budgeted amounts or the
Yes,
proposed
we need,
amounts?
so we have to have two public comment or two public hearings. We had
Okay.
one this month, last month, and one this month. And then they're supposed to approve it today.
Okay.
So we can do our annual action
By
plan.
resolution, the city council approved the community development block grant CDBG project use of funds for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. We'll be back in a few weeks.
Okay, thank you.
You need a punch card for your presenter.
No kidding.
It only gives you another free presentation, so maybe you don't want it.
I'll pop for a Coke or something for you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 11.3. Jason Bench will give us a presentation on a T-Mobile conditional use permit. You just went on the hike, right? With us?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll let the applicant introduce himself if that's okay.
Yeah, my name is Matt Schucher with Rage Development, contractor for T-Mobile on the project to put antennas on top of the Alpine Credit Union.
So before us tonight is a request for a stealth location for a cellular antenna on top of Alpine Credit Union. Typically, antennas that are roof mounted are permitted by use. There are several of them throughout the city, and I'll show you some examples of what we have. But because they're wanting to enclose it and hide it from the general public as far as what it actually would be as antennas, it does throw it into a stealth requirement, which under our ordinance requires the council through a conditional use permit to approve a stealth location or to consider it to be stealth in order for it to be enclosed as they're proposing. So the location tonight is, you see the Alpine Credit Union here. They're proposing to put the antennas, which we'll show you here on the next slide, in the upper corner at this location. The existing infrastructure on top of the roof for the Alpine Credit Union is already there. It projects a little bit above the roof line. They're proposing to project 10 feet above the top of the roof. It's a recessed, has a little parapet on top, so it's recessed about 4 or 5 feet. They're going to actually, it's about a 15-foot tall structure, but you're only going to see 10 feet of that as you drive by. The total allowance in the C2 zone allows up to 30% of the roof to be covered with mechanical equipment, other things like that. The total existing equipment plus what these gentlemen is proposing equals 4%. So it doesn't cover a significant amount of roof. You can see it's at least 232 feet to the building itself from the residential property to the east. That's as close as State Street as you can see on this picture on the top, what it will look like driving by. The material that you can see on the band of the roof is the same material that they'll use to enclose the antennas. So it'll match the existing color and the existing material of that roof band. And you can see it goes around the bottom and the sides as well. So that's the similar stuff there. So the overall height of the building to the top of the parapet, or what you can physically see, the tall building, is 45 feet 6 inches. They're proposing a total height of 55 6 inches. The maximum height that they could go is 58, so they're well under that requirement. Just a couple of examples of fiber net down on 8th East Squire building, which is also on University Parkway on 8th East. Although these are permitted antennas, so they basically have located those through a building permit process, but it is permitted. And so we, as long as they meet the height requirements of overall height in the C2, they are permitted. Similar with this instance as well, because they want to conceal them. That's why we're here tonight. If they just simply wanted to put them on the roof, they would have gone through a building permit process and they would have probably been on the roof already. So the Planning Commission did review it and did make a recommendation. The council approved the conditional use. I'll be glad to address any questions, and I'm not sure if the applicant has anything additional to add.
I don't necessarily have any additional to say other than just I'm here to answer questions or whatever you guys need.
Do we have any questions? Terry? So is it Matt, did you say?
Yes.
So Matt, just a concern we talked about in our work session. I don't know if you were in the meeting just before this.
I was
one, but just the controversy around these towers and people concerned about the health issues. I know they're in a lot of elementary schools and junior highs. So, and I've read things on both sides of that issue.
Sure.
So do you want to share with us your reaction to that and opinion?
As far as the health goes, I mean, everything is regulated by the FCC, FAA. We have to do so much regulatory to get one of these things built. It's basically so every carrier has allotted spectrum or what they have licensed as far as frequencies. And so that's all regulated and it's all considered safe by the government. And there was a Telecommunications Act of 1996 that basically prohibits a denial based on health because that is regulated by the federal government. So I've been around these for 20 years. I don't know. I'm not too worried about it. It's like a microwave. I mean, you don't want to stand right in front of an antenna for an extended period of time, but there's boundaries they put up and all sorts of regulations and signs and things to make it safe for everybody. That if you have a contractor to go work on the roof, there'll be all of that stuff taken care of.
So are there some states that have banned them or have restrictions?
No, it's the Telecommunications Act is a federal statute. It's not per state. So it's, are you familiar? So yeah, there's no states that have banned them. I mean, I know there's like news out there about like 5G and people burning down towers in Europe and different things, but it's all the same 3G, 4G, 5G. It's the same frequencies, the same regulations, and everything is managed by the federal government. I guess is the best way. That's a simple.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, like you said, the Federal Telecommunications Act prohibits any state or local government entity from denying an application on the basis of health concerns, or I think electromagnetic radiation, those kinds of concerns.
Yeah, and in cases like that, I mean, we're on apartment buildings and things like that, and we have to get, I can't remember what it stands for, EME studies, electromagnetic something. Anyway, to make sure that it's safe for any kind of tenant or person in the area.
Any other questions? Debbie?
The reason you want to close it is to aesthetics, make it blend better with the building, or?
Yeah, we in working with Alpine Credit Union, we were looking at, like he was showing it. We typically do 3 sectors of antennas. So there's an alpha, beta, and gamma sector, and they point different directions to get the proper coverage. And it's pretty common on rooftops to do 3 different sleds that are about 10 by 12 feet. This is a unique situation where we have a higher rooftop. And I actually suggested this to Alpine Credit Union because we had a unique opportunity to enclose this to make it just look like a penthouse or a mechanical room. And it never looks that good. So I feel like we're trying to do what's best for the community, I guess, because ultimately we can throw up, they're just not as pretty.
Thank you.
Lene?
Yeah, so this is in my neck of the woods, and there were some neighbors who had questions about some of the materials that you were using to enclose the structure
Stephanie.
in. So would you maybe just outline that? And I've heard the conversations that you've had and the explanations that were given, and I believe the neighbors are accepting of this. But perhaps, they were asking for maybe some different coverings, and could you possibly explain why you settled on what you settled on?
So we looked at multiple different options. Like I said, I have another photo simulation of what it would look like with just antennas up there as opposed to the thing, but I didn't bring those because that's not what we're proposing. I guess, so basically we have to use like what is that stuff called? Anyway, it's got to be RF compatible, meaning radio frequency can shoot through it. So it's like a fiberglass type material. And so there's limits on what you can do. I mean, I know I've seen the trees and the different things that this is probably one of the better looking sites I've ever looked at, because we don't have to do 3 across the whole roof, you know, and it's just a 10 by 12 box. So anyway, the Alpine Credit Union, they have a board, and this is what they voted to move forward with. We can do some different things, but it does get tricky at times.
There were just some questions. Could you do it to match the wood on the front? And I think you've explained it, that the materials are very.
Yeah, we even
specialized.
talked about, I mean, originally they just actually wanted like a box that matched the trim of, and I just offered the fact that it might be more attractive this way. But yeah, I mean, we even looked at doing a logo up there for another Alpine Credit Union thing or something like that. But this ultimately was what everyone voted on and decided on. Because we have to work with the city and everybody, but we also have to work with the landlord and make sure that they're happy. So.
Anything else?
I can make it uglier if you want. No, I'm just.
I was going to ask you about that twitch from the antennas. Anyway. Any other comments?
I mean, I think maybe ask Stephanie a question if you're good with that. Yeah, you can come up if you would.
I don't know if I know the answer, but you can ask me a question.
No, I was just saying is you know, what Lene was saying, are you guys fine with that? I mean, I think it's an acceptable.
Right. So my concern was being this an after the fact addition to this building. It kind of does look like it is a box set on top of a building. If a building was designed from the get-go to have these types of, you know, mechanical coverages, I think it would look different. So that was just our concern as neighbors. There's a couple of us that have taller houses, and that's what we see. We see the rooftop of this building. I see most of the mechanical. The parapet doesn't really disguise much of the mechanical for me, in my perspective, from my line of sight. So I will see the full 15 feet of this box on top of this building. And so will my neighbors that have, you know, windows that are a little bit taller. And I appreciate that we've communicated quite a bit after the last meeting, and he's shared his information with me, and I've given my contact with him, and he would like to discuss some artistic ways to disguise it a little bit better. So I think when you look at the parapet material, he even talked about having a color to match it, that the credit union has given them the code to that paint so they can make it blend with the parapet color and the parapet material. So I appreciate there's been that attempt to make it more aesthetic. I personally don't like boxes on tops of buildings. That's just my personal opinion. There's a really nice one on top of Sun River Gardens. That one is a really beautiful box on top of its building, but it's a different type of a building. So I just feel like the neighbors have come to the conclusion that if this is going to happen, this is the best way for it to happen, because the other alternatives are probably a little more unsightly, or, you know, could be a monopole in the back half of the parking lot, which we don't want that either. So we appreciate there's been an effort on that credit union as well as T-Mobile to make this as pleasing as possible when it's a subjective word, pleasing, but that's really the residents' take on it. And that's pretty much the consensus. The ones we've talked to is like, it's their building. They're going to do it as best they can to not ruin their building. And we will look at 15 more feet of it. So.
Okay.
Does
Thanks,
that answer your
Stephanie.
question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, more than you wanted, I'm sure.
No, but that's fine.
And it is a very attractive new building, which is why we've tried to make it blend as much as possible.
Okay. Any other comments? Can we have a motion?
To make it.
Okay.
I move that we approve of a T-Mobile stealth location of cell antennas and equipment located on the top of Alpine Credit Union at 1510 North State Street in the C2 zone.
Just to clarify, the motion was to approve the conditional use permit for.
Oh, sorry.
that use. Yeah.
Conditional use.
Second.
Aye.
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 You both did it at the same time.
What did you go?
You did.
Okay. I didn't hear you.
Oh, I did.
We did it at the same exact time.
Yes.
Anyway, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, moving on to item 13. City manager information items.
Mayor, thank you. Just a couple of items for your information, members of the city council. The first one is we had our first, we had a kickoff meeting today with Layton Construction in regards to the construction of the new city center. We were introduced to the entire team, both the actual design and then the construction team that will be part of this effort. One of the things that we talked about is constructability in this obviously difficult time and environment, and what are some of the best ways that we can work together to economize and to save limited budget resources. We've kind of reached the conclusion going forward that we are going to work with Layton and Method Studio in the design of the building, and that we will bid this building in one significant bid package. And then we will shoot for initiating construction of the building at the beginning of March of next year. And the reason we are kind of pushing it deeper into the new year is to avoid winter construction conditions, which ultimately will save us some money. So we could, for example, start construction of the building sooner rather than later, we believe, but then we would potentially incur some significant winter costs associated with the project. But one of the things that we are looking to do is we are looking to, in advance of turning dirt on the building, lining up contractors and subcontractors to work with us, identifying materials that will be used in the building, i.e. steel and some of these other things, and then procuring them sooner rather than later so that we can, to some degree, also mitigate what we anticipate are going to be growing construction costs associated with this build. So while we won't necessarily formally turn dirt on a building until March of next year, there will be a lot of things happening, including the procurement process happening in advance of the actual construction, so that we can get some materials, for example, that are subject to price increases on order. We can get materials that have long lead times. We can start ordering them sooner rather than later so that they will be available when it's necessary to obviously use them in the construction process, and so on and so forth. So it honestly is very much similar to what Provo City has done, where Provo City went through a similar process and they acquired many of the materials that were needed for the building many months in advance of actually constructing the building. So we think it's a very good cost-conscious strategy. And our first meeting with Layton, I was honestly impressed with kind of their know-how and the way that they are trying to strategically approach construction of this building. So it was an encouraging meeting, and we have set up an opportunity to begin meeting with them in person every 2 weeks with a weekly kind of video check-in via Zoom as well on those off weeks. So a good start to that relationship. Just the other thing, and this is all things constructability today. You're well aware, obviously, of the process we have underway to build a new water tank at 4th West and 4th South. We are getting now down to brass tacks, and we are looking specifically at some of the challenges with constructability of that particular facility. As you know, it's going to be a large facility that's going to require a lot of excavation. So we started looking at how we were going to excavate all of this material out of that property in kind of a tight area. At the same time, in order for us to move all this material, we actually need to bring trucks on site, and we need to bring them into essentially the area that we will excavate, and then bring them out of the area that we will excavate. And we have to make sure that the path in and the path out meet certain grade requirements. So for example, we can't have these large dump trucks going in at a 20% grade. We've got to find a way to get them safely to the bottom, for example, of the hole, and then to get it safely out of the hole. We started looking at that, and we realized that we probably were in too tight of a spot. But fortunately, to our benefit, was a parcel of property that was available for sale to the west of the park site. So there's about a 0.4 acre parcel of property that is due west of the tank site that was available for sale.
Was it a building lot, house? What was
There actually is a small house deep on the back of the lot, but there's quite a bit of frontage that could be used. And so we actually put in an offer and met with the property owner. And I don't know if we've formally submitted a Rep C yet.
I'll let Steve talk. He's writing the Rep C. Yeah, we should be able to get that Rep C to him tomorrow, I think.
So we are in the process of purchasing that property. I think we've agreed to terms with the property owner, and he understands why we need this property, and he's willing to sell the property to us at market prices. We would purchase the property, incorporate that property into the construction phase of this project in order for us to accommodate trucks moving into the site and out of the site for excavation purposes and for staging of materials and things like that for the project itself. And then after the project is complete, then we would actually sell the property. So it would not be the city's intent, at least initially, to hold on to that property, but to use it essentially right now for construction purposes. I wanted to just make you aware of that because the cost of the property, I think, is about $460,000. So it's not a small expenditure, but at the same time, it's a good expenditure from the perspective of enabling the construction of the project and doing everything that we can to mitigate the interface between that construction site and Orem Elementary that's across the street, and the truck volume that's going to take place in and out of that site for the period necessary to essentially dig a very big hole. So I wanted to make you aware of both of those issues. We are very close to having a design drawing for the tank itself and the pump house and the associated facilities that are obviously tied to the well, to the tank. And here in the next couple of weeks, we will mobilize and begin drilling the well on that property as well. So that project is well underway.
Is there any update on the fence options? When we're looking at different options?
So Lane Gray, our capital projects manager, is looking at that right now.
So still in that
and
process.
is getting some pricing, yes.
And then also just came to my mind is have we made any progress on Wiggy Wash?
Yes, in fact, we have made some progress, and it's not necessarily the same progress I reported to you several weeks ago. Jason Bench and Ryan were contacted by the Wiggy Wash folks, Brent Wignall, and he essentially shared with us that their corporate office is looking at some improvements for the site, including some more, I guess, some quieter blowers that will improve the sounds emanating from that facility. So we had talked initially with Brent about those new blowers. His initial response was, I think those are going to be too expensive. I don't think those are going to be part of any solution. But apparently corporate had a different idea, and they came back and reported to Jason that they are in fact going to install these quieter blowers at the Wiggy Wash site. So that was very encouraging.
It is. That's good news.
And that you just heard from them within the week, right?
Yeah, the engineers from that company are going to come out in the next month or so to see what the infrastructure is and then determine how to install them. So
and then maybe we could get some of the neighbors there. Maybe they could be there too or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated on what we.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. Jamie, I had a couple questions. First of all, as you know, we worked with Layton and Method on our new business building, and they were a great team. I'd someday like to talk to you about who from their organizations are assigned. We might do that offline. I assume prior to March, so we can do some of the ground tests that are required and some of those other things. We started in January where we had a much bigger footprint. So their recommendation to March, I don't disagree with. But and then who's quarterbacking this from our side? Is that Ryan again?
Lane Gray is our capital projects manager. So Lane is the one who is coordinating.
Okay. Yep, Lane and he works with you, Ryan, correct?
In fact, Lane has already initiated a asbestos review of this building.
Okay.
Because ultimately, at some point, we're going to have to take down this building, and we also talked about initiating the geotechnical process for the new footprint of the building. In fact, in our meeting today, Lane was getting that underway. Also, in the same meeting, we talked about some of the trees and some of the issues that we might have with the property to the east of this building. And our city arborist, Josh Story, was out this afternoon as we were congregating to go up the canyon, already looking at the trees on that property. So Lane is on top of this project, and I really appreciate his his engagement and cooperation with Ryan, because Ryan's his direct supervisor in the construction of not only this building, but Hillcrest Park. And Lane is also very involved in our Heritage Park as well, and the tank project.
And from a family standpoint, this is significant since my father-in-law was in these seats when this building was built. And
Yes.
it's interesting that I'll be here to help knock it down for him 55 years later. But
Yeah,
thank you.
I
for
hope
that
he won't
report.
hold that against you.
I don't think I'll get cut out of the future will. We're good. Thank you for that report, Jamie.
Debbie?
Just two questions. I think last time you told us there was some system in the new building that's going to take 65 weeks and I can't remember what system that was.
It's a power transformer. And so that was also part of our conversation today, was to get with the electrical engineers and to see if we have current sufficient power and appropriate transformers on property right now to accommodate the new build, or if it's necessary for us to order a transformer in the future. And if so, we ought to get going on that sooner rather than later.
And then my other question is, as supplies come in, where will we be storing them? I can see Public Works, or will Layton Construction be storing somewhere they have? Where?
So that is also part of the conversation. We really haven't engaged yet with Layton, but we all acknowledge, including Layton, that this is going to be a tight site. And we're going to potentially look at potentially staging some of what may be necessary here on this campus, but obviously being sensitive to some of the uses that we have, for example, in City Center Park and Summerfest and things like that. But we would also anticipate that we're probably need to find space. And Chris isn't here. He wasn't in the meeting today, but for example, our Public Works facility is probably going to need to be used in some way to house and store some of, it could be, 1,500 gallons of paint. I don't know, but those kind of things are things we're going to have to talk about.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Jamie. Is there any other questions? Yes, we're gonna.
I'd like to move that we adjourn to a closed door meeting to be held in conference room 107 of Orem City Hall, 56 North State Street, Orem City, to a closed meeting for a strategic session to discuss. That's where the minutes end.
Litigation.
Litigation.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.